All right, so here's what we did. We started out thinking we had 832 acres. The survey told us we had 700 and something or other. Okay, and here's the key points. Key point is, he told you, didn't he, that tract right there would probably pay for the whole parcel?
From day one.
That's 37 acres, and there's a school right here. Brand new school.
$15 million school, less than 2 years old.
And this 37 acres is right beside it. Perfect place for commercial development. Over here's a subdivision right beside it. New houses. All the land over here is now currently vacant. It's pasture. There's hay rolls out in it. But if you look, you'll see a road coming right down here, going right up through here. And there's houses all over the place. It's all, developing pretty quickly. What is that, a subdivision right there?
That's old. That's the original downtown Forney. That's downtown Forney.
Okay.
All right.
Now, the seller told us he'd take the $14 million with $1.2 million down.
Correct.
And finance the rest for 3 or 4 years, I don't know, 4% interest.
5 years.
At 4% interest with an annual payment of interest only.
Correct.
Interest only. I said, hey, Rock, man, we got it now. Now, we didn't really know what this land was worth. And if he tells you he did, he's lying. All right. But we knew it was worth more than we were paying. Okay, a lot more than we were paying. We liked the terms, though. And the terms were, as I said, 1.2 down. Now, we got this property appraised by itself because Rock saw that it was commercial property. Frankly, it's actually not commercial property, but the city says it's okay to be commercial. In Texas, you got this thing called rollback taxes. If you take agricultural land and you convert it to commercial use, you got to go pay the taxes as if it was commercial for 3 years prior.
That's right.
Nobody's real eager to convert agricultural to commercial until they're ready to do something with the commercial.
Correct.
So it's still sitting there agricultural. But the city says, no problem. Anytime you want a commercial, we'd love to have your tax money. This parcel appraised for $12,200,000 by itself. Okay, we paid $14 million for the whole thing. And frankly, there's 200 acres you don't even see on this map that's already platted for a subdivision.
And that small one is only 37 acres out of over 800.
This was 37, yeah. Okay, so we knew we had a homer right then and there. By the way, I'm closing a loan next week on that parcel alone, right there, for $5 million. Now, here's an even better one. Just 2 weeks ago, Rock takes this parcel. I said, Rock, go get this thing appraised. We need to know what the heck we're dealing with here. Anyway, I don't know how you drew this line, but there's 245 acres.
That's right there.
Somewhere along in here. Anyway, it's the land right beside the school. That 245 acres appraised for how much?
$45 million.
$45 million. So we paid $14 million for 800 acres. 12.2 of it is worth 37 of it is worth 12.2. 243 is worth 45 million. I don't know what the rest of it's worth, but it can only get better from here. The rest of it's a bonus, isn't it? Okay. So what are we going to do with that 245 acres there?
We're going to move the downtown Forney, which is here. We're going to move to our new city hall. We're going to build we're going to do in Forney what they're doing in Frisco. A town center is going to be, city hall will be right in the middle. All of this is zone commercial. And by the way, that $45 million is actually based on $7 a foot. Walmart is here. They're selling the pad sites around Walmart for $22 a foot. So that's an ultra conservative number.
I like your definition of conservative. Could I easily have taken this piece right here, borrowed $2, $3, $4, $5 million on it, appraised for 12.2? Is that a good safe loan? Put up to 1.2 to buy it, and then had plenty left over. By the way, the release clause on that property is $740,000. Now, we didn't name it. Seller told us what he wanted to release it. So we got to pay the $740 off when we close the loan on it. Use the asset of the seller to borrow the money to buy the whole asset. Works well with owner financing. And what if we didn't have this parcel? Could we have taken any parcel anywhere in this whole thing and done the same thing and borrowed at least the 1.2 to pay the seller the down payment? All right? So the next time you guys are looking at a tract of land In fact, here's how we structure offers on tracts of land. I don't care where they're at, especially if they want all cash for them. Even if we're buying them dirt cheap and we got to pay all cash, I want X number of acres free and clear the day we close the purchase of the property. Now, based on what I'm telling you right now, excuse me, that's not true. If I'm paying all cash for the whole property, I use the whole property for collateral to get the loan. But now let's say the seller's willing to owner finance the property, but I need to raise the down payment. Then I will split off a piece of it to borrow the down payment on, just like we just did here. And I do this by running this very simple formula through my mind. I ask myself, how much do I need to borrow? Let's say I need to borrow $2 million. Let's say the seller wants a $2 million down payment. Then I ask myself, it's only going to come from a private lender, because, folks, you ain't borrowing more money from banks than you're paying. They're not going to do that. Private lenders, private funding is where you're going to get the money to acquire real estate, for the most part. So I ask myself, what loan-to-value ratio is a private lender comfortable lending on property? You 70%. You show me one to do 70%, and I'll show you a miracle, or a private lender that's drunk. Ain't no private lender going to loan 70% of land. I'm talking land here. 50% if you're lucky. Private lenders want to be very well secured on land. And I'm going to tell you, it's their least favorite thing to lend on, for obvious reasons. If I were you, I would not structure it based on a 50% LTV. Right. I would structure it based on a lower LTV. So if I needed to raise $2 million for a down payment, I think I'd probably want about $5 million worth of property to use for collateral. But remember, that's $5 million at appraised value, not $5 million at my purchase price. Make sense? Yeah. So if I'm buying land and I'm buying it cheap, I don't have to tie up $5 million of the land that I'm purchasing. I just got to figure out how much land is worth $5 million. $6 million. And that's how much I want to get free and clear at closing. I'm getting it free and clear in closing for about 30 seconds so that I can have a private lender put a first mortgage on it to lend me at least the $2 million I need to use it for a down payment to buy the rest of the property. So I'm borrowing the down payment on the seller's asset. Now, if I needed $2 million, how much would I borrow? More. The answer is more than $2 million. Because if you're borrowing $2 million, guess what you get to do in 30 days? Make a payment. How many of you would enjoy making a $2 million payment out of your pocket? No. You borrow the money to buy and do whatever you're going to do with the property. At the very least, you borrow the money to buy and pay back that loan until you've got plenty of time to clearly go to the next step of the plan. In the case of raw land, you better have the next step of the plan in your mind. Rock and I are probably going to be in this property until we collect Social Security some way or another, because there's an awful lot of building going on here. There's just so much upside with this property. He's right. I like this property better than I do Frisco because of the huge mass of land that we will probably never run out of stuff to do with. And the financing's even better than Frisco. So how do we buy it? What technique did we use? Use the seller's asset to raise money to buy the seller's asset. Incidentally, is that very common in the world of buying businesses?
Absolutely.
Oh, man, that's what they do all the time. Big businesses, the big companies come in and swoop down to buy a business. What do you think the first thing they ask themselves? What assets can we sell off that are worth more than the whole business? Yes, Mike?
This technique only works if it's got separate parcels. So you can't, if you had one big parcel.
Not necessarily, Mike. In fact, you'll find big tracts of farmland all the time that are one big parcel.
Right.
So you just have the seller give you X number of acres or X number of square feet at the time you purchase, and then during the due diligence, you work out which portion that is.
It's called partial releases.
And you agree to that?
No, but if you're going to get financing from a bank on that parcel...
You're not going to get financing from a bank, Mike. Forget that. Here's a farm. Okay, here's a road. I want a road somewhere. I'm not really happy about buying places that don't have a road somewhere. All right, here's a road. Boom, boom. Okay, one big tract. So I'm buying this whole tract for $5 million, but I got to raise $1 million. Remember what I told you this morning? If I'm putting up 20% of the total, I want at least 20% of the land. And that's an easy way to make your offer. I want 20% of the land free and clear with $1 million down payment. Seller and buyer will determine which property gets released during due diligence. Instead of trying to figure out what 20%, you don't know enough now to figure out what 20% you want, do you? I'll tell you this much. If I get 20% of the land, I also want 20% of the road frontage. They're not sticking me back in the back and landlocking me and creating a rabbit path back there to me. Frankly, I just won't accept that if they're not going to be reasonable and give me. Why shouldn't they give me 20% of the land? I'm paying them cash for it, ain't I? Hello? I'm paying them 20% of the money in cash. They should give me 20% of the land for the cash payment.
I'm paying cash for 20%.
Yeah, but I'm paying cash for 20% of the property, but am I paying retail price? No, if I pay retail price for that 20%, I won't be able to borrow enough money on it. I hope I'm getting through here. Okay, so if the land's worth $20,000 an acre and I'm paying $8,000 an acre, if I get 20% of the land, I get 20% of it times $20,000 an acre. Now I only got to go, well, never mind, you get the picture. So we go back during our due diligence and we sit down with the seller or the seller's broker and we just say, listen, we want 20% of this land. Just draw a line right there. We'll have a surveyor draw it before closing. Just know that we want 20% of the road frontage and 20% of the land and boom, 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 boom. And get the seller to sign off on this. You just draw a little map. You know, this ain't near as sophisticated as you think it is. You get out the plat map and you draw a little line on it. Choom. And you say, this is 20% of the property, and then you agree, get the seller to sign off on that, and then you have a surveyor draw the line. And now at closing, that legal description gets, when they take back a mortgage on the property, they only take back a mortgage on the 80%, not the 20%. Am I losing you?
That's what it is.
Well, they release the 20% at closing because they don't really release it. They just don't put a lien against it. They're deeding you the whole parcel, but they're only taking a mortgage back on 80% of it. And now, of course, your private lender is going to come in and swoop in and put a mortgage on the 20%.
And what Ron is sharing with you is exactly the type of discussions that he and I have had about land. I mean, this is the drill that we go through. I mean,
yeah.
It's worth.
And, I think Rock will be the first to admit that in his earlier days, he wanted to buck the system and, create deals with not enough thought as to where the money's coming from. Since I'm the guy who's writing the checks, guess what's the first thing I ask? Well, where's the money coming from? Well, he said, you. I said, what's your second choice? I don't like that choice. What do I teach anyway? We'll start right now by taking a real deal apart and see what we can do about it. What are we dealing in? How much land?
This is small.
How much land?
19.6 acres.
19.6 acres. Residential or commercial?
Both. There's lots that have been subdivided and approved out of it's half a subdivision that was done in 1978.
Half of a subdivision?
Yes.
Okay, let me see it. There's the road. Okay. Here's the commercial tract. Here's the residential tract. Okay. This is commercial. And this is residential. By the way, I hope there's a way to get into the residential.
This is phase one. It's been completed.
They're going to put a road right down here somewhere that gets into here. Okay. So now what's the market value of this property as is where it is?
We're asking 129.9.
They're asking 129.9?
Yeah.
That's all?
Yeah.
Okay. What's this commercial property here alone by itself worth?
some of the property we've been looking at is about, 35?
Oh, so you're just looking at this parcel?
No, we're
at
looking-
the commercial part. There's
All
how much
that
on the
together
commercial
is
part?
20 acres.
Correct. That's correct. There's 6.4 commercial.
All right, that's 6.4 there, and the rest is whatever, 13.2. All right. What's the commercial property worth by itself?
We're guessing a minimum of 80,000.
For 6.4 acres?
Yeah,
Where is this?
It's called Elbridge, New York.
Just outside of Syracuse.
It's
Just
about
outside of Syracuse?
just new developments going in, but we haven't got comps or anything near that. They just started putting stuff in.
I got to tell you something, guys. I think your number's crazy. 6.4 acres.
That's what the realtor was trying to show us.
Oh, well, then I know it's nuts. 6.4 acres.
Well, there's
zoned
only about
commercial.
3 acres of the back of that commercial's wet. Okay,
So there's 3 acres of commercial.
buildable.
3
right,
buildable
yes.
acres. Okay. So you think the value of the property of the commercial is how much?
He told us between 80 and 150. So there's a big range there.
Okay, it's worth 100. How much is the residential worth?
There's various size lots, but
We have to put the road in.
What's the sellout of this entire project right here if you put the structure in?
about 320,000.
If we put the
That's
road
all the lots you can get out of that?
There's 10. They're already there.
in. They're already approved.
Oh, they're already approved. So the sellout then is 300,000. How much will it take to get the property in the back ready to sell? How much do you need to spend to get this thing ready to sell back here?
150?
150.
Yeah, because we got to put a road in and bring the utilities in on the semicircle.
Okay, you're telling me that you got to put a road in to bring utilities in here, but you just told me it was ready to sell. Now, which is it?
Well, it's plotted out.
It's
Phase
plotted
one is
out.
done.
Well,
Phase
so
two-
somebody's drawn a map,
No, phase 1 is done.
okay?
We have to put in phase 2, which means putting in the road in and bringing the utilities around the semicircle.
What's phase 1?
Phase 1 is this part here, which is already done. And houses are on it. These are the type of quality homes that are on it.
Look, I'm not going to get that deeply involved in it. You just tell me how much money you think you got to spend to get this thing, this entire parcel right here, ready to sell, period. 150,000? You're telling me now that the whole property developed is only worth 409,000 or 400,000. Is that what you're telling me?
Right.
You sure?
No, we're not sure. That's what we're told. That's what we found. Our comps are on the
All right.
residential lots.
You're telling me that right now you think they're worth 400,000 and it's going to take 150,000 to get it worth 400,000 after you buy it for 129,000.
No, we think we're getting. We were thinking we were gonna.
Who likes that deal? I pay 129 for it, I spend 150 on it, it's worth 400. First of all, how does the seller want their money?
They've asked for us to make an offer on. They'll offer seller financing us to come bring them an offer,
Mighty nice of them.
and it's been on for a year.
Okay. Well, I'll
There's
tell you what I
pretty
would
good
do.
motivation because of that.
First thing I would do is get them way down on the price. I would just tell them what you just told me. Say, look, man, I got to spend $150,000. The whole deal ain't worth more than $400,000. You want me to give you $129,000? Does that make any sense to you? So what's the least you're going to take for this property? You get him down, and then you say, okay, I'll give you $5,000 down, and you can get the rest of it when I get paid. And don't talk to me about interest or payments or any of that crap. When I get paid, you get paid. And frankly, if you don't want that deal, sell to somebody else, which they're not going to do. Unless that somebody else knows that value is higher than your value, which I suspect it is, guys.
Yeah, well,
I suspect it's way higher.
we think this commercial lot's probably.
Well, you're making assumptions based on faulty information. I mean, I don't even need to know where this property is to know that it's worth more than $400,000 developed. And I'm betting you that 3 acres on that commercial, if there's commercial anywhere around this, I'm betting you that 3 acres up front is worth more than your $129,000 purchase price.
Yeah, that's.
See what you're trying to get me to do? You're trying to lead me to help you make an offer when you're giving me bad information on the front end. So here's what you do to fix it. You go get it under contract with the best negotiated terms you can. And then you get professionals to help you figure out what the true market value of this thing is and what the true cost of getting that property done. And of course, also in the meantime, they'll clear the way to make sure you don't have any problems with the city getting all the approvals you need to finish the project up.
Yeah, we've got
Then
that.
you'll know where you're at. In the due diligence process, you will find out what the true value is, what the true exit strategy is, and then you can make a decision whether to move forward or not. That's it. You don't have enough facts right now to make it a cinch of a deal. You might find stuff. I think what you're going to find out is going to be very positive. I think you're going to get some pleasant surprises on it, as we quite often do. And of course, Rock and I knew that 243 acres was worth $45 million when we bought that property.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Thank you. Give my hand. Okay, what's next in your book? The old, ugly, hard cash out. Are you guys going to run across tons and tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of deals where you can buy them for all cash? Yeah. Unfortunately, most of them are going to cost more than you want to pay for all cash, but are you going to find a bunch of them where you can pay all cash and get killer deals? Well, let's see. First of all, where are you going to get the all cash from? Me? Don't point at me. Where are you going to get the all cash from? Private money. That's almost always where you're going to get the all cash from. Where's another way you can get it? From a partner. We just covered that. From a partner. Grants. You can get a grant to cover the purchase price of the property in Michigan.
Depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, I don't know. But if you can, I darn sure want to know about it, wouldn't you? You can do it for nursing homes? Well, guess what I'd be looking for?
Guess what I found?
Yeah, nursing homes. All right. You're not going to let me get the one up on you here, are you, Jill?
Not anymore.
All right, not anymore, he says.
Not twice in one day.
All right, here's a project that we're working on in Florida with Nathan. That's it. Now, I want you guys to take a look at this. This would be a what? That's an airport. There used to be buildings here. There are no longer buildings here. Hurricane wiped them out, which is a good thing, probably. City will put buildings back here. City will build buildings back here. This is the property, this whole thing. There's 160,000 square foot of warehouse spaces right in here, right down this line. Okay? And this is the 16,000 square foot office building. This is our property. City wants to put a road right down here. City wants to extend this out to 6,500 feet, which will bring in the largest jets in the country. And what do you think that'll do to this little burg? All right. Now, this is the one we just got an appraisal on for $11 million. This is the one we got to buy for $3 million. But it's what? It's all cash. It's all cash. And so now, how are we going to raise the cash? Can we go to the bank to raise the money to buy this property? Sure you can. As long as what? Well, you're going to sign personally. What else? As long as you put 25% skin in the game. And even if I went to the bank and borrowed money on this property, how do banks feel about vacant properties with no income coming in? They don't get real excited about it, do they? Okay. So is a bank a way to acquire this property? No. Now, do you see that water tower right there? It just so happens that the city cannot extend that airport without the use of our water tower. Because they don't have enough water pressure. You see this water? There's another water. We have another water unit somewhere. There's a big old water tank. The city has agreed to maintain that water tower, which needs painted badly, and the other water tank if we let them use it to extend the airport. Now, is it in our best interest if they extend the airport?
Yes.
Yeah? What do you think is going to happen right along here if they build a road right there and we own this property? What do you got right here? Oh, you got a bunch of commercial pads, don't you? Okay. Now, the realtor thinks he's got part of this lease. This building right here has got 32-foot ceilings. This is all brand new roofs. This must be an old picture because these are all new roofs. And the realtor thinks he's got that part leased and maybe another part of it leased. Now, here's the plan. Plan one, buy property, raise money to buy property. We're going to borrow at least $4 million on that property. What's the purchase price? $3 million. What's the appraisal? $11 million. Okay, should that be an easy loan to get? Which means what? It'll be hard. Okay. Strategy simple. Raise money, buy property. Rent property, get property occupied. And then the city says they will refinance it on bond money at 2.5% interest. So if the city refinances it on bond money at 2.5% interest, would that might help cash flow?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if the city refinances it with bond money, what are they going to refinance? The $4 million that I owe, or closer to the value? Oh. So in other words, we buy property, we put tenants in property, which we meaning the realtor that brought us the deal. We get tenants in property, then we go for bond money. In fact, we go for bond money now, and while we're getting tenants, and then we refinance, we take out the hard money loan and put several $1 million cash in our pockets. And is that money taxable or tax deferred? Tax deferred. God bless America. The only way you're going to buy that property is hard money, unless you're willing to come up with 25% of $3 million to buy it. There is no other way, except partners. Now, how are Nathan and David buying it? Partners. They don't give a crap how we raise the money. They just know they ain't writing no checks, right, guys?
Do owner finance or have the owner...
Could I do owner finance? I can do all kinds of things if the owner wanted to. What do you think this mattress company told us how they're going to sell us this property? Take it or leave it. Huh? Give me money. Give me cash. Don't come at me with all these terms. By the way, they wanted $4 million. Could I have owner financing, do owner financing, create a note and sell the note? What is the problem with selling off a note? Well, hey, they discount it, but I can structure it at a higher rate so that I don't have to take a discount. But what does a note buyer insist that you have in the deal to buy the note? No. Skin in the game. Ain't no note buyer going to buy a note when they see that the property was 100% financed by the seller. And if they do, they're going to buy it at such a deep discount, seller's going to get whacked on the note. Don't get too creative on me now. Take a pill.
Ron, can I ask a question?
Yeah, I guess you can.
How about a land contract refinance it based on the appraised value? Can you do that like you do on...
How about a land contract refinance based on the appraised value? Of course, you understand now that that is unapplicable to this deal.
That's not...
It's a cash deal. Why don't we just raise the cash? Why don't we just go get a private money and raise the cash? What makes it easier to get the loan? What makes it easy to get the loan? The loan to value ratio. Correct. You guys are going to create yourself right out of business if you ain't careful. And incidentally, how do you think we got the realtor's attention on this deal to begin with? I mean, yeah, okay, he wants cash, we'll give him cash, less than they want. Great. 60 days to do due diligence, 30 days to close. Here's a building we don't have under contract but should have. Now, this is the stadium right here where the Super Bowl is going to be held this year. This is the one we have under contract, but we're still warring over the cellar with a couple items. 37 stories high, 165,000 square feet, 1/3 occupied. What directed my attention? 1/3 occupied. But the agreement was almost $4 million cash. Forget about owner financing. Forget about any of that stuff. But we figured that what a great condo conversion. There's 37 stories. We figure worst case, we split each story in half, which is 3,000 square feet. Worst case, or 3,500 square feet, you have 2 office condos per floor. Office condos. Wouldn't be hard to take an office building and divide it in half and make the office condos out of it, would it? Okay. Best case, we turn it into residential condos. And there happens to be one of those going on 2 buildings down. And of course, the upside on this thing is, $40 million upside. Based on what they're telling us. They're telling us it's worth $270 a foot as office condos. We don't know if that's true or not, but hey, it's in one of those regentrified areas. But what's the only way we're going to buy it? Cash, and where are we going to get the cash? Private money. Correct. What would it have to appraise at for me to want to buy it at close to $4 million with hard money? If it ain't worth at least $8 or $10 million as is, there ain't no way I'm going to go try to borrow money on a private money. And by the way, if I'm going to convert it to condos, and it truly is worth about $40 million on the upside, it can't be that expensive to convert this building to office condos. It'll be very expensive to convert it to residential, but it's all relative, isn't it? If I'm spending a dime and I'm getting $1, I'll spend the dime rather than spending a nickel and getting 50 cents. And I don't even know what I just said, so don't ask again. Sounded good anyway, didn't it? If I'm buying land and I'm paying all cash, what kind of loan to value am I looking for? Folks, I promise you, you want me to pay all cash for land? Hey man, don't even come at me with anything more than about 40% LTV, and I'm going to work to get it lower than that. Or maybe you don't think you can buy land, 40% LTV. Okay, Rock and Dale negotiated this one as well. This one's currently under contract in Michigan, in Traverse City. And man, you're talking about the deal of all deals. What you're looking here is a thing called Boardman Crossing, of which to me was just a word till I went up there and looked at it. What you're looking at here is 283 acres of land. And as you can see, it's already been platted out. And in fact, I'm becoming an expert on this land. This red right in here is commercial property. There's 2 5-acre commercial tracts. This is a medium valued subdivision, and these are the lower priced subdivisions here. These are commercial tracts all the way around this thing. But you guys didn't even know that, did you? Did you know that?
Yeah, right over.
These are potential commercial tracts all the way around here on the green. Okay, this thing, nobody has spent any money developing it yet, but they got this far. They had it all approved once. Now we're going to make sure we're not going to have any problem before we close on it. And the upside, frankly, we don't even know what the upside is. What is the upside on this thing?
It's like net 19 million, but there's a golf course all the way around here.
Oh yeah, there's a golf course here. It's not our golf course. Oh, and there's a part up here. This part's already to sell here.
Right.
This is already done. I don't know what that's worth, but that part's not even on the map, but it's part of what we're buying. And with this golf course, I bet you we wind up owning this golf course before it's over. Incidentally, are golf courses a good investment? Golf courses lose money. What's the only reason to have a golf course? So you can own the land around it. The land around it's where the money is, not the golf course. Golf courses lose money. People who own golf courses are avid golfers, are their developers in the making here. Now, in fact, I got 4 or 5 golf courses we can buy right now for a song. But here's the key. We don't know what this thing is worth. Frankly, it's all guesswork based on what the realtors told us. But we do know there's a boatload of lots in this baby, and there's a boatload of commercial potential. And by the way, there's a huge need in this city for elderly housing. I mean, like, they got a waiting list of something like 2,000 people looking for elderly housing in this city. So guess what we're going to do? I see elderly housing in our future. This parcel right here is already zoned that we can build apartments on it. And we can build up. You bet your bippy there's going to be some elderly housing there. And there's probably going to be some over there on the other end as well. This thing is so huge and so massive. And the next time I go back, I'm going to take a helicopter and fly over, because the last time I was there, we was walking in the snow. It all looked white to me. Here's the key. We know, I would tell you for absolute certainty, that the upside on this property is at least $15 to $20 million. They think it's 18 to 20 million bucks. I think they're conservative. By the time we get through deciding what the best use is, we're changing the complexion of this whole burg this thing is in. With this project will take quite a while to get done. We'll be in this thing 2, 3, 4 years, maybe longer. Who cares? In fact, I'll probably be in it till I die. Because you can rest assured, if I build a high-rise elderly thing here, we ain't selling that baby. I mean, that's a cash cow. That'll support me in my old age.
We grabbed this when it was 4 weeks on the market. When it was 4 weeks on the market, that's when I recognized
it. Did you?
Yeah.
Now here's the real kicker and why we're discussing this. Our purchase price, $2 million bucks. But it's all cash. So what? Is that a pretty good low loan to value ratio? And we're getting the numbers right now on what it'll cost to develop it. My guess, $4 million. Your guess? Well, maybe so. Well, I'm talking about just getting it ready to sell lots now. I'm not talking about building anything. 283 acres. But remember, some of it is commercial here that you don't do anything to. Do we know this, though? Do we know it's okay to buy this for $2 million bucks? Oh, yeah. Do we need to do a whole lot of due diligence to know that? And we're doing the due diligence, don't get me wrong. And also, I want to know that the city's not going to block me from doing whatever we're going to do with this property. I want to know that they're on our side, not fighting us every step of the way. And would they be stupid not to be on our side for this thing? Well, let's do the tax rolls of this little city. I mean, jumping through the roof. And we'll do some commercial stuff around it. And, we just have fun with this. It'd be like moving your checkies around the checkerboard and playing Monopoly on this thing. And isn't this a beautiful job that the realtor did on this? Yeah. So where are we going to get the money? I'm going to borrow it. I'm going to borrow it on the property, plus the money to develop it. And as soon as I get some numbers in as to what the sellout value is and what the cost to develop it is, we'll know exactly what we need to borrow. And I'm going to tell you right now, just as soon as that loan closes and that purchase closes, believe me, this development is going to begin. And it'll continue moving forward till there's nothing left to develop, which will take years. You got any comment on that?
Yeah, well, there ought to be some state and federal money, some TIF money. I mean, that's a new concept that I have really grown fond of. You got to know that, and a lot of people don't know that, and they go and borrow all their money as developers and do all that, and the state is the beneficiary because you don't participate as a developer in the tax revenue. So, it's a part of the negotiation game. I mean, since they're going to get all the tax revenue, you go to them and say, hey, buddy, we're partnering. We're partners anyway. So, I've got this in the game. What are you going to put in the game? And to your surprise, to my surprise, they're very amenable. Both state and federal.
Yeah, you're right.
Go to your EDC office, go to the city manager or find out what tax benefits are available, city comptroller or something like that.
You hit it right on the head. Folks, when you do a development like this, you literally are partners with the city. You literally are. They want you in there. And if they don't want you in there, I want to know it right from the get-go. Okay. Now, by the way, I want this class to get a feel for why this project is being sold for what it's being sold for. What's the history of it?
The history, oh my goodness, this
pretty sordid.
Yeah, it's really convoluted. There was this whole place was under foreclosure. The Knutson, this family that owned it. It was a partnership between him and another partner, and this other partner called Donald was a shyster, and he embezzled millions of dollars from the Knutson family without them knowing it through this project. So he is now being sought for federal fraud and all sorts of things, and he is not in jail yet, but they'll find him. And so the Knutson family really had a sour thought of developing this and wanted to get rid of it, and it went on the market, and the broker knew this family very closely. And she just said, can you help in this matter? This is the first property she brought me to.
Excellent.
Traverse City. And
you guys should know that this thing is so complicated to get all the title problems sorted out and all the crap and all the information we need on this thing. We got the seller to give us a 30-day extension on our due diligence period.
Right.
Frankly, if they wouldn't have, I'd have had to back out of this deal, and that would have killed me because I just don't know enough information to know whether this deal is viable. Apparently it is. They're getting it ironed out little by little. But we also have to have our numbers in place. I got to know what this thing's worth. I got to know what it's going to cost. I got to know if we're going to have problems getting it done. And believe me, they're working diligently to get all those facts. So, I've got a $50,000 deposit up there. How much do I have at risk?
Zero.
I have nothing at risk. Get that through your head, with the exception of whatever we're spending to do the due diligence. Yes, sir.
Yes, just a quick question. I want to make sure I follow your point on the borrowing from the hard money lender. Are you submitting an appraisal to them of the...
We're going to get to that when we get to financing tomorrow.
Okay.
But certainly they are going to want you to get one, or they're going to get one. We're going to cover all that financing stuff tomorrow. Next one, take over debt subject to. Has anybody ever heard of that?
That one works familiar.
Well, guess what? It works on some commercial properties. In fact, why don't you tell them, Rock, about the project that we almost bought that we could have took over the debt subject to on, but I nixed it when I looked at the project. I said, Rock, it was a low-income project, and I said, Rock, this is how I grew up. I don't want no more of this crap. And I tell you how quickly this one was to nix. I said, Rock, if we buy this project, it's your responsibility to manage this mess and these people. Do you want this project? He said, no, never mind.
Yeah, there's a apartment complex in the Metroplex, 300 and some, I don't remember exactly, but a pretty big project. And it had a purchase price of $3.8 million, first mortgage of 2.9, 6% interest, lock in for 5 years, and we were into the first two years. So 3 years you couldn't close out the first without a pretty hefty penalty. And the seller was pretty inflexible on his terms. He really wanted $1 million down. And if you do the math on that, however, the NOI was $300,000, I believe, a year. Is that right? That's about right. It was a very it was a very good deal when you consider that the guy wanted $1 million, and the fact that you couldn't do anything with the first. So we walked away.
We walked away mainly because it was a great big hassle and way more work than it was worth. In addition to that, if we'd have took over the debt subject to, I saw some deferred maintenance that somebody would have to come out of pocket to do because there was no way to borrow the money to get the maintenance done. Do you understand why? Yeah, the debt was too high. Now, if we could have increased the net operating income and got the rents up, we could have then done what? Refinance the property at a non-recourse loan and maybe pull some cash out of it. But frankly, I saw the pain worse than the gain myself. It was not low-hanging fruit. It was easy to buy the property. How much money was we supposed to put down on that? Wasn't much.
It was $400,000.
$400,000?
Yeah.
I don't remember it being that. Maybe that's why I killed it. I don't remember. Okay. So be on the lookout for debt that you can take over subject to. I had an office building in Nashville that I really could have bought if I'd have wanted it bad enough. And the numbers were really simple. In fact, it's the one I've described in here. It was worth $4 million and it was fully occupied, 100%. But it had two problems. Problem number one, had a balloon due in the next 18 months. And problem number two, they had a big 50,000 square foot tenant moving out in the next 7 months. Now, it was owned by an organization who didn't even want the building anymore. They didn't even use it anymore. So I offered to take over the debt. The debt on it was, I offered, I forgot what I offered. I thought the debt was 2-some odd million. Anyway, I offered them $500,000 on a second with no payment, no interest, due in 2 years. And I wrote, in fact, the letter of intent, I believe, is in the book when we get to that, the actual letter of intent. My plan was to get a new tenant and refinance it for $3 million. That's right, I offered them $2.5 million, take over their $2 million loan, and give them a $500,000 second. And I thought I was very generous with that offer. And then I was going to go get it re-rented when that tenant moved out, refinance it for $3 million, pay off the $2, pay off their $500 after I discounted them, and it'd be worth $4 million. And it was a nice office. We're talking about a nice office building in Nashville. And really what attracted me to it was it had some extra land that wasn't being used that I felt we could build something else on. And it had a nice, great, big parking lot and the whole works. So, but anyway, the seller decided that they wanted $3 million for it, not $2.5 million. So, the rest of the terms didn't bother them, but I just didn't want to pay them their asking price, so I killed it. Dead deal. But it all revolved around taking over loan subject to. Now, it was a non-recourse loan to begin with, so taking over the loan subject to didn't bother them. I just didn't want to go through the crap of assuming it and all that, even if I wasn't liable for it. Page 45. This is one you don't ever want to forget. Rock and I are in a position right now where we could do this every which way but Sunday. We've got all this equity in this property. And remember, folks, anytime you've got equity in property, you can borrow the down payment for one you want to buy against the property you already own. You can borrow the down payment, whether you're buying the new property with seller financing or whether you're going to go to the loan bank and get a loan for it and borrow 75% of its value. If you've got additional collateral that you can borrow the 25% on, you got the deal done. So you can use property A to fund property B. For example, on that Forney property that we've got, do you guys remember that 240 some odd acres that appraised for $45 million? I don't know what we owe on it, but it's probably
$5 million.
$5 million?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we owe $5 million on it, appraises for $45 million, is there a chance we might be able to borrow a little money on it? Hello? Yep. Okay. So if we need to borrow money for a down payment, now, do you know a private lender is going to lend us a second? No. So what's the problem with borrowing money on that property? The problem is we got to pay off the $5 million to borrow whatever it is we want left over. Who likes the idea of paying off 4% financing and replacing it with 10% financing or whatever?
The lender.
You're the lender. Yeah, I don't like that idea myself very much. However, Could we take the 245 acres and just take a piece of it
Right.
and pay off part of it instead of all of it? Sure, got all those opportunities available. Could we borrow money on Frisco right now to put up a down payment for another property if we needed to? You know, a heartbeat. You got a $30 million value, you got a $12 million debt. I think there's money there we could borrow. So and I want you guys to, because I know you're sitting there thinking all this stuff doesn't apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to think back 1 year. Didn't apply to him either a year ago. Didn't apply to me a year ago. It only applies to us now because we got in the game.
Right. That's right.
Add additional collateral, the next page.
Brian, they should have been shouting when you went over that subject too.
They're too tired to shout, Rob.
That is really a powerful concept. It's every bit as powerful in the commercial. It's more powerful in the commercial world than it is in the single family. But you've got to, and there are lots of folks who'll do that. I mean, we live for that. That's the easiest way to get in light and realize all the benefits. Think about that one for a bit. That'll make you a lot of money.
Now, let's suppose you run across the property. The seller wants a down payment. And you'll discover probably that most of the people who sell you commercial properties really don't need the money.
Right.
They just want security. They want to know that you got skin in the game. They want to know that they can trust you. Right? All right. Another way to raise capital to buy property for the down payment. Now, we're assuming here that the seller will finance it if we come up with a down payment. And in fact, in this case, the down payment is kind of on the irrelevant side. As long as you got additional equity in other property that you can use as collateral. Now, follow me here. I got a property A. Let's say I got $1 million property. Seller says he'll finance it for me with $200,000 down. $800,000 loan. Regardless of what the term or all that is, you'll finance it for him. Now, of course, should the property be worth $1 million? I mean, more than $1 million. Hello? Should it be worth more than $1 million? Okay. So if I'm going to buy $1 million property, I don't want no $1 million value. I mean, I don't like that plan. Remember, I'm going to get free equity, or I'm not going to buy no matter how I buy. So let's just assume we got $1.5 million property we can buy for $1 million bucks. If we can come up with $200 down, the seller finance $800. Now I got this other property somewhere. I got $200,000 or $300,000 worth of equity in it. You just simply tell the seller, well, look, how about this? Instead of me giving you $200,000 down, let me sign an $800,000 note to you, and let me give you a $200,000 second mortgage on this other property that I've got over here, just so you'll know that I'm going to pay. That means, Mr. Seller, if I don't keep my promise, you can take back your $1 million deal, plus you can take my property as well. Because both of them will be on the mortgage as collateral. Will that make you sleep better at night? And I promise you, most of the time that will do the job if they don't have to have the cash. Or if they understand what you just said. Now, could we do that till the cows come home with all the equity we have in our property for anybody who will own or finance who doesn't need the cash? Yes or yes? Okay, so remember that. Put that one down in your arsenal there.
I
got it. All right. Now, there's a couple of tidbits on that one. Look in the middle of that page, on page 46. You don't want to go putting a mortgage on your property unless you negotiate some kind of release provision when it falls off of your property. In other words, look, we're doing this so you can get to know you, trust me. So I want to add it in here that if I've done what I said I'm going to do for, say, the first year, at the end of the year, I want that mortgage released off my property. By that time, you'll know if I'm real or not. That's the way I'd set it up if I were you. Don't go into that blind and not have any provision to release that mortgage off your property without paying off that whole debt. What if you don't have that collateral?
I could use yours.
Correct. What if she don't have that collateral? But she knows somebody with that collateral. Yeah. Hey, you want to use our collateral? No problem. Bring us deals. We'll use our collateral. Yep. In a heartbeat. You bet. If she don't have the collateral, she can come to me. And of course, what is she going to have to give up in order to get me to put up my collateral? Piece of the deal. And in our case, 80, 90%, no big deal. Nah, whatever's reasonable. So you always know somebody with other collateral, cut them in for a deal. Look, they got no money to invest. They are risking their collateral, but obviously they're going to want a piece of the action, and they're going to want to make sure you keep your promises if they're going to risk their collateral. You see, it's whatever your mind can conceive. And now you got to go back through here and start making your mind work a little harder when you start structuring these deals. That's all. All right, exchange assets, page 47. There's a little note in here. This is a true story that I wrote in here for you. It says, I recently attempted this technique in reverse. I found an airplane, and the owner, he had a $4 million plane that I wanted. $4 million plane, that was what it was worth. I offered him $5 million in free and clear land for the airplane. Now, would that have been a good swap for him?
Yeah.
If the land was worth $5 million, yeah. Now, what was I going to do? I was going to give him the $5 million worth of free and clear land that we got for free, by the way. Since I owed $1.7 million on the land, I'd have had to have raised $1.7 million to make the deal work, wouldn't I? Right? Yes. So who thinks I'd have trouble borrowing $1.7 million on a $4 million airplane? Now, what would have been the end results of that deal?
An airplane.
I would have got Rock a $4 million airplane for $1.7 million.
Are we still working on this?
No. No, we're not, but I can guarantee you that there's probably about 40% of the airplane owners out there would love to trade them for free and clear land. I mean, they'd love to. I mean, they got this asset out there that there's only a handful of buyers for. You want an airplane? That's how you buy an airplane. You trade land for it. Now, do you understand that I bought the land at wholesale, but I'm trading it at retail? Yeah. In fact, I'm giving the guy more land than he's got value in his airplane. Could I buy land at wholesale and trade it into other real estate at retail?
Oh, sure.
You bet. You bet. They don't need to know what you paid for it, and frankly, it's none of their business what you paid for it. Sell part of seller's asset to close. Sell part. Not borrow on it, sell part. On page 48. We got an offer going on right now on a tract of land with a house on it. I'm not going to tell you where. But the realtor told me that this piece of land has got $3 million worth of coal on it. Coal, and then there's some other kind of crap that I can't remember the name of that they sell at Home Depot. And the asking price on this property is $1.5 million to some old lady who's in a nursing home. It made the deal pretty easy to analyze, didn't it? Let me see. We got $3 million worth of minerals on it. She's asking 1.5, and then the 100 acres is free left over. You know, you sell off the coal, pay for the property, and have 100 acres free. But here I am. She wants 1.5, so I offered her $1 million, and she wouldn't take that. So we're at 1.1 now. We're playing the game. I hope she don't die on me. Now, if I put this thing under contract, could I negotiate the sale of the coal? Well, it probably ain't going to work that way in this case, because I'm not going to be able to sell the coal till I close on the property and then let them come take it out, am I? No, I'm not. I'm probably going to have to raise the money, buy the property, then sell the coal, get the money back, pay off the property, and have it free. That's the only way that one's going to work. But how about trees? I tell you how trees work. Same thing works for trees, guys. In fact, we got a property right now with something like 10,000 trees on it that Rick's been working on. And so you make a deal to sell off the trees, and you get a great big huge deposit on the trees simultaneously with closing on the property. And then they come harvest the trees the day after or whenever you close. And then they pay you the balance. Now, be on the lookout for assets that come with the property that have value. And some of you live in areas where there are other, like, I don't know, I can't even think, but I'll tell you what, hardwood trees. Man, if it's got hardwood, you guys live in the north, you should be looking for them. Hardwood trees are ungodly expensive. And if you don't think so, go down to Home Depot and buy just one board of mahogany. I mean, you can buy a house for what you're going to pay for that one board of mahogany. That stuff's expensive. Now, is that going to apply to every property you buy? No, but how many does it need to apply to? You just one good one. Just one good one. Right, credit lines. Should all of you who have credit lines? And when do you think would be a good time to get the credit line? When you need them or before you need them? Yeah. When you need them, then nobody's going to give them to you. When you don't need them, they're begging you to take them if you got good credit and a reasonable financial statement. The loan that I'm closing on this property in Forney is not a loan, it's a credit line. In other words, we take it out and we pay for it as we use it, which is even better than what I started out getting. It's better. It's better. It's a credit line. Here I am getting a credit line on an asset. And believe me, the lender is fully aware of what I paid for the asset. Because I made sure of it, right from the get-go. So make darn sure they are fully aware that I'm borrowing more than I have in the asset. And if they don't like it, move on. So when I bought the property on Frisco, I had to put up $2 million down, but $1 million of it came from a credit line, just a personal credit line I negotiated with my local bank. And so I didn't have to write that check. Well, I wrote the check just the same. This is property we have under contract in New York. The $375,000, $100,000 down. Where would I get the $100,000 down if I didn't have it? A credit line. Correct. I use a credit line. So the time for you to go apply for credit lines is when you need it and when you got plenty of time to get them approved. If they're going to do you a credit line, they'll approve it in 48 hours. It don't take long to get a credit line done. And I'm working on improving my credit lines. And obviously, in fact, I need to get another credit line on some of these other assets that we got because I have the financial statement to get it done. And I want to get it done before we get our back to the wall. You know, I'm sick and tired of having my back to the wall trying to raise money, and it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to keep happening to me. And we about got that fixed already. And by the way, when I fix something for me, I fix something for you. All right, next page. Equity sharing. Anytime you're looking at a property, you always could ask yourself, if I leave the seller in the deal, will that make it easier for us to get the deal done? Now, first of all, you got to want to leave the seller in the deal, class. And I'm going to tell you, I would look hard at that. It is not my favorite way to purchase a property, by far. I want to get rid of the seller. I don't want anything to do with him if I can help it. However, we got a couple of cases. The 63 acres, for example, I suggested to Rock, go tell this guy, instead of us paying him $2 million, why don't we pay him more than what he's asking? Throw a couple $100 more in the till, but pay him as we sell off the lots. Then let us develop the lots, sell off the lots, and we don't have to go raise the $2 million. Incidentally, if we have to raise the $2 million, is it likely we're going to wind up paying the same amount to that lender as we would paying him extra for the lots? Right. As we released them. But he don't want to play ball, but he has given us an extension. So what do you mean by equity sharing? Well, we got to deal with a fella right now. I'm not going to tell you where, I'm not going to tell you who, but we got this guy who's got a couple acres he wants us to build condos on. You have the land, you want us to swoop in and do the work. Great. It's a marriage made in heaven. It eliminates the need to buy the land. So now we partner up and we build whatever we're going to build on it. And do you understand, if we have the land, that's the same as having skin in the game. Okay, the skin's in the game from the lender's point of view. Now, it may not be enough skin. For example, if the land's not worth, say, 25% of the total project value, then you're a little short on skin. In other words, a lender loans you money to do a development or build a project. They're going to lend you more than about 75% of the after-repaired value, and that's only if the numbers make sense.
Right. That's right.
So they're going to want to know that the people borrowing the money have the wherewithal to get the job done. Now, actually, I said they'll loan you 75% of the after-repaired value, didn't I? But they'll quite often loan you 100% of the development cost.
Right.
They're not going to loan you 100% of the development cost unless you got skin in the game.
Right.
So when you got somebody who brings the land to the table, we got most or all of the skin we need. It's a marriage made in heaven. Equity sharing, I mean, you could spend 5 days talking about all kinds of ways to equity share. Just ask yourself this: how can I create a partnership with this seller, if I like them, to help me make it easy for me to get the job done? Here's what I got to do. Now what can I do? Ask them to do to make that easier. Question?
On the equity sharing, when it comes to financing for these developments,
Yep.
are you personally...
Case by case. Sometimes the partner is just as qualified getting a loan as you are. In fact, the partner that I'm talking about here right now, he's just as qualified getting a loan as I am. So I'm not going to let him chip in the land and me go out there and get the loan without him on it. if we're going to do this deal, we're going to do it together. I'm not going to take all the risk. Now, in this particular case, it doesn't matter because it's a non-recourse loan anyway. I mean, we're going to build a boatload of condos. Ain't nobody going to guarantee that loan. Ain't nobody needs to guarantee that loan. Here's a project. Can I show them this?
Sure, absolutely. Guys, we are extremely excited about this opportunity. As of probably a couple of weeks ago, there were only 3 entitled projects in all of the San Francisco Bay Area. It's just, I mean, that market is a world-class market, as you know. We have the great fortune of having under contract this historic hotel, this Hotel Majestic, and we're going to convert the 58 rooms actually into, we're still determining it, it's either going to be 26 or 28 luxury condominiums. We acquired it for $12 million. We're proposing to put $3 million in remodel or conversion dollars, and the value in San Francisco ranges from $1,000 a foot to $3,000 a foot. So conservatively, at $1,500, you can do the math. It's unbelievable. But that's
what do you think the upside is? 30, 35 million. What do you think it's worth as a whole?
At $1,500 a foot, $45 million.
45 million.
As a matter of fact,
the very first thing we did after getting this property under contract.
Yeah, and the reason for that, that's a good question, Debbie. That's the reason there's only been 3 projects are currently, as of a couple of weeks ago, entitled in the city of this nature. But to go from apartments to condos is frowned on. But to go from a hotel like this, and considering that everything around it is already has been condo converted, it actually does a couple of things. One, it relieves a lot of the parking burden because we're going from 58 rooms down to half of that. So they're very much in favor of it. We can't touch the facade because it's a historic building, but we can modify the rooms. Fortunately, initially looks like all we're going to have to do is move a couple of doors and very light modifications because of what the layout is.
First thing I said was, can we go up? First thing they said was no. So, okay, we're dealing with what we got then. All right, but it'll work out. There'll be a few bucks left over. Somebody who knew about the property brought it to us because we're now big players. That's how we found it. Word of mouth. And this is a cash purchase, incidentally. We had to buy it cash because the entity selling it said pay cash or hit the road jack. Forget about owner financing. They don't know how to spell that. They bought it cash. They're going to sell it cash. And if you don't like it, tough. Go away.
And with a $45 million value, we're trying to close as fast as we can before they recognize what we're doing.
It's an operating hotel.
It's a hotel.
It's irrelevant for what we're going to do with it. We're financing it by getting a lender to put up the money and put up the cost of development. And, when a hot property like that, you're a few blocks from Fisherman's Wharf here, guys. I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. Somebody could see it. And by the way, we got a deposit out there. Is it at risk?
No.
Not for another week, anyway. Okay, last one, number 13. Finance the entire purchase and rehab. And actually, I brought this one up a little early because that's what this was all about. Are we actually financing the purchase price and the rehab with one stroke on this property?
Yes.
Yes, we are. That was the intention going in. We're going to borrow enough money to buy the property and convert it to condos, and we're only going to do one loan on it. And then that loan's going to be taken out as the condos are sold. Got it? And there will be release provisions in the loan that we pay them X number of dollars every time one's sold and it goes applied toward the debt. They keep some, we keep some. That's a standard way of doing it. And incidentally, how long do you think these condos will be on the market?
They're going to go for probably $1,000 a foot. The average unit will be about 800 square feet.
Which in San Francisco is a mansion.
Yeah, exactly. The realtor's telling us conservatively we'll have them sold in 60 days. As a matter of fact, we could probably do a lottery.
We'll have them sold before we ever break ground. We'll have them sold before the hotel gets cleared out.
This is representative of the type of deals that we do. And if you want to really shorten the time between where you are and getting paid, why not really have us to do all the work? Some of you have a few nickels that you need to invest wisely. There'll be opportunities to do that. Take a small equity piece and share in the returns. And Ron will give you more details on that stuff later.
Well, there's always a way to get somebody who's serious and involved. All right, last one, finance the entire purchase and rehab. Now, I'll tell you where this is really important to you, especially, is on apartment complexes. In fact, I thought I had information here. Oh, I got it in tomorrow. It's in tomorrow. There's loans for apartment complex. There's government-sponsored loans from HUD, the 221D and the 221F, and several other programs. The government will literally finance the purchase and the rehab of the property, and they'll go up to 90% of the value, not the purchase price, the value. These are great loans. They go up to 40-year amortization. And I got the information that's in here, a few more pages back, and we'll get to it tomorrow. But in this particular case, we did the same thing I was going to do on here. You know that 108 unit we were going to do in Flint, Michigan? That's exactly what I intended to do. I intended to get a loan to buy the property and rehab the property and only have to do it one time. And I believe I would have done that if I wanted the project. I knew that if I had to, I'd go ahead and get the $1 million funded and then just sit on it till we got the loan to pay that off and do the rehab. And get the $1 million funded with a private loan if the loan to value was there, which apparently it wasn't. There's a project in Louisiana. My whole intent, in fact, I structured the offer in Louisiana to give me time to go get a 221D loan to buy the property. The deal that we had out here, the 300 units that we were going to do, told Rock, I said, go back and tell them if you can get their permission to let us go get new financing on it, to get it financed fully and give us time to do it and base it contingent upon doing that, I stay in the game. But other than that, I got to get out of the game because got too many things against us going on here. So you guys should know about what kind of a project you can get fully financed and what time you can't. And frankly, where are you going to get that information from?
Research.
You're going to get it from the people who got their head in the financing game all day long. And who would that be? Commercial mortgage brokers, correct. In fact, Brandon will be up here the whole day tomorrow, and we're going to pick his brain until there is nothing left in there.
And one of the things that we found, too, to keep the pressure off of you, you really want to do as much of that due diligence before the clock starts.
You betcha, of which we're going to wait till in the morning to cover. But before we do that, I want you to turn to page 52. And this one's important. You need to know this, and you need to absorb this. In the world of commercial real estate, it's buyer beware. It's caveat emptor. It ain't like houses. There is no consumer protection agency out there that gets a rat's ass whether you live or die when you're buying commercial property. The general consensus around the country is you're grown-ups, you're big enough to take care of yourself, you're not going to go sue a homeowner because they didn't disclose the property had lead-based paint to you.
That's right.
Forget about it. It's your responsibility to do the due diligence. And if you're not smart enough to get it done before you buy, guess who gets to hold the bag afterward? You do. And one of those due diligence is an environmental study, which we're going to come back to sometime later. We're not going to get into that today. It's just one of the things. Due diligence is something that you have got to have under your, you have to understand what you have to get done, and you have to hire professionals to get it done. So if you buy a apartment complex and later find out it's got lead-based paint, whose problem is it? Yours. If you buy a piece of land and you later find out that it's been poisoned with gas tanks leaking in it, whose problem is it? Yours. Not the seller's, yours. May you find a way to go back and sue them for something? Perhaps, but I can tell you right now, the courts are not in your favor. Unlike residential, this is a different world over here. This is where the big boys live, and the big boys don't need protection, so there are no consumer agencies that are going to protect you. It's your word against theirs. I'll tell you a story about an apartment complex in Jacksonville. 52 unit, totally boarded up. And I found out that this attorney owned it, and I put this whole property under contract for $500,000. 52 concrete block units boarded up for $500,000. I said, man, that's a steal. So I put it under contract. The guy insisted on giving him at least a $30,000 earnest money deposit. And at that time, I wasn't smart enough to have a due diligence period in there first. So I said, okay, we'll give you $30,000 deposit. So then I'm getting this all thing ready to close, and then I have to have a conversation with my attorney one day, and I tell him about this project. He says, have you had it checked for asbestos? I said, what do I need to do that for? It don't have asbestos. He said, well, it wouldn't hurt to have it checked. So I sent the asbestos guy out there. I sent the environmental guy out there. Turns out that every ceiling in the entire property had asbestos in it. So I said, well, God, that's horrible news. Go get me an estimate on fixing the asbestos. The estimate came in, $850,000 to fix the asbestos. All right. So I'm buying his units for $500, and it cost $850 to fix the ceilings. This put a kink in my deal. So I goes back to this attorney. I says, man, this property's got asbestos. I want my $30,000 back. Basically, he said, shove it where the sun don't shine. So I sued him, or I threatened to sue him, and we agreed that he'd give me $15,000 of my $30,000 back. And my attorney says, you're lucky to get that. You better take it, because you're probably going to lose this thing in court. Buyer beware. So I took my $15,000 and I learned a lesson from it. As it turns out, I find out later that this guy had sold this property to 3 other people prior to me, sucked up their deposits, and after I backed out of it, I know of at least 3 other people that had it under contract after I did. This guy's making a living off of these deposits. Hopefully that sometime somebody's going to come along stupid enough to buy it without getting a check for asbestos. And somebody did, because it's up there now, and I don't know what that deal is, but it's no longer on the market and it's been renovated, and so somebody paid out the nose for it, or will. What would happen if I'd have bought that project, renovated it, not had the asbestos check, and put 52 tenants in it, and then one of them gets asbestos poisoning? You're talking about a class action lawsuit made in heaven. All you need is one. Chapter 7 on that project. And guess who they'd probably try to come after personally? Yeah, regardless of what entity I bought it in. If I had anything to do with the project, especially if I had any conversations with tenants, which I wouldn't have, I was in my attorney's office on another matter, and he just suggested.
Thank you.